Let's go.
What's happening?
Who are you? Why are you here? Who are you?
A seemingly ordinary day at a Hong Kong power plant quickly turns catastrophic when a mysterious hacker infiltrates their system. The plant's cooling system is disabled, causing temperatures to soar and ultimately triggering a massive explosion. The disaster kills or severely injures hundreds of workers, prompting the evacuation of everyone within a 10-kilometer radius. Meanwhile, in a US prison, hacker Nick is led out of his cell in handcuffs. During a search, authorities discover a hidden device among his belongings and notice that criminals in Nick's neighborhood recently received unexplained deposits. Suspecting Nick's involvement, they confront him, but he denies any connection. As a result, he is placed in solitary confinement, where he occupies his time with rigorous exercise. In China, Captain Dawai briefs government officials about the hack at the Hong Kong power plant. He explains that the attack was executed using a remote access tool, Hathaway, exploiting the plant's outdated and unsecured systems. It also comes to light that identical reactors in the United States were simultaneously targeted. Dawai believes he can track down the hacker, but he requires access to the plant's computers. Unfortunately, the plant remains dangerously hot from the explosion, preventing anyone from entering safely until it cools down. To pursue the case, Dawai contacts the FBI, and Agent Carol must persuade her superiors that collaborating with Chinese authorities is worthwhile. Eventually, Dawai obtains the code from the attack on the American reactor. However, he lacks the technical expertise to decipher it, prompting him to enlist the help of his sister, Lian, a skilled network engineer. Later that night, the Mercantile Trade Exchange in Chicago comes under attack from the same hacker, causing financial data to spike uncontrollably. The following day, the FBI convenes to analyze the incident. Examining the rat code, they determine it was authored by two individuals. Dawai, unimpressed by the superficial findings, insists that Carol bring Nick on board to help solve the case. Although Nick has a notorious history of hacking banks, Carol worries about trusting him. Dawai, however, reveals a crucial detail. Half of the rat code was originally created by him as a college prank, while the other half was developed by Nick. The hacker had stolen their combined code and modified it for these attacks. To stop the hacker, they need the expertise of the person who fully understands the original code, Nick. An FBI agent visits Nick in prison with an offer. Assistance on the case could secure his temporary release. Upon reviewing the terms, Nick realizes the release only lasts a few weeks and refuses to sign. Instead, he proposes a different arrangement. If he successfully apprehends the hacker, his sentence will be fully cleared. If not, he returns to prison. Desperate to resolve the case, the FBI reluctantly agrees to his conditions. Dawai is sent to pick up Nick, leading to a tense but cordial reunion. During their flight, Dawai shows Nick the modified rat code. Carol reprimands Dawai, reminding him that, according to the agreement, Nick's computer access should only occur under strict FBI supervision. Shortly afterward, Nick gains access to the Mercantile Trade Exchange's terminals, which are protected by an extremely secure firewall. Introducing a virus remotely is impossible. Only the boss, with his thumbprint, can grant physical access. As Nick examines the system, he discovers that someone has concealed malicious code on the boss's USB drive. While considering potential suspects, the boss recalls an employee named Lozano, who worked at the exchange for just 1 month before mysteriously vanishing. Later, Nick and Lian examine the code and notice several unfinished sections. They deduce that the hacker's initial attacks, such as targeting the soy market, were driven by a need for quick cash to fund the completion of the code, indicating an even larger operation is planned. Meanwhile, the FBI reviews security footage and locates Lozano. Examining his tattoos, they realize he is affiliated with a gang and had falsified his identity to secure employment at the exchange. Deploying a large team to confront him would draw unwanted attention, so Nick and Lian volunteer to approach him directly. To ensure Nick doesn't flee, he is fitted with an ankle monitor. When Nick and Lian enter Lozano's apartment, they are met with a shocking sight. Lozano is dead, a needle still in his arm. They inspect his computers and discover sophisticated devices designed to encrypt all his data and mask his IP address, indicating that the hacker had prepared this setup for him. A mysterious email requests a meeting, and Nick responds to confirm the time and location. The agent assigned to monitor Nick attempts to report the situation, but loses signal. Nick seizes the opportunity to use the phone to fix the connection and discreetly modify the app tracking his ankle monitor. Meanwhile, Carol and Dawai approach the Mercantile Trade Exchange's boss, requesting access to all client records. Initially, he refuses, citing confidentiality concerns. However, when Carol threatens to expose the market's vulnerability to the press, he reluctantly complies. Once they obtain the client files, Dawai and Carol scrutinize the transactions and identify 3 unusually large trades, perfectly timed to exploit the hack. Investigation reveals that these trades are connected to bank accounts in Hong Kong. That evening, Nick and Lian wait at a restaurant for the hacker, but he never appears. Nick grows suspicious after noticing several security cameras and slips into the back room to inspect the system controlling them. He soon realizes the hacker has been monitoring their movements through the cameras the entire time. While reviewing the footage software, Nick traces the hacker's IP address to Ukraine and sends him a message, only to receive a mocking reply. Angry, Nick returns to the dining area and tells Leon they need to leave immediately. Before they can, a group of thugs storms into the restaurant and demands to know who they are. Nick responds without hesitation, launching into a brutal fight using whatever he can grab, including chairs and tables. He takes down most of the attackers, and when the final thug charges at him with a knife, Nick smashes a bottle and swiftly overpowers him. After the fight, Nick calls Hathaway to warn him that the email was a trap, and that the hacker is now aware they are closing in. Hathaway responds by announcing that they will fly to China the next morning to trace the bank accounts connected to the attack. With no immediate danger, Nick and Leanne spend the rest of the night together. The following day, the team arrives at the damaged power plant, where rescue crews are still pulling victims from the wreckage. The structure remains dangerously hot, forcing them to delay access to the computer systems. They then meet with local authorities who have identified the bank account holders, 3 low-level criminals linked to a known trafficker named Kassar. The group believes these men are acting as fronts for the real hacker. The police explain that they've been monitoring the 3 men for days and haven't observed anything unusual. However, when Nick reviews their daily routines side by side, he notices that all 3 regularly pass through the same location. Nick and Hathaway head there themselves and find a police van already conducting surveillance on a Lebanese smuggler nearby. After reviewing the van's recorded footage, they realize the suspects show up at this spot every morning but never interact with anyone. They simply stand around sending text messages. Nick begins scanning the area with a phone and eventually detects a strange signal. Following it, he uncovers a concealed transmitter hidden in the bushes. Once connected to a computer, they confirm the setup. The 3 men only need to walk past the transmitter to receive instructions from the hacker, then erase the messages afterward, leaving behind no trace. Not long afterward, the team realizes that all the money in the 3 monitored bank accounts has suddenly been transferred, confirming that the hacker has collected his payout. Hathaway immediately goes to update Nick, only to walk in and find him in bed with Leon. The operation continues regardless, and the team boards a helicopter to pursue Kassar. During the flight, Hathaway warns Nick to think carefully about his relationship with Leon, reminding him that there's a strong chance he could end up back in prison. When they arrive at the target location, they discover that the officers conducting surveillance have already been killed. The team storms the building and clears it room by room, but Kassar and his men have already escaped. The team soon discovers a concealed hatch in the floor and follows it downward to continue the pursuit. Without warning, gunfire erupts as the criminals ambush them, forcing the agents to return fire. Kassar is among them and seizes one of the officers, using him as a human shield. While holding the agent, Kassar shoots several attackers before brutally slashing his captive's throat. As Kassar and his men emerge from the tunnel, they prepare to detonate explosives, but another group of agents is already positioned at the exit and opens fire on them. As the remaining thugs return fire, Kassar detonates the explosives, causing the tunnel to collapse and burying the agents trapped inside. With their backup wiped out, the team positioned at the exit is quickly overrun, and more officers are killed in the exchange. Outgunned and outnumbered, the surviving agents are forced to take cover behind nearby containers. This gives Kassar and his men the chance they need to escape by boat. As they flee across the water, Kassar angrily realizes that one of his wounded men is dying from his injuries. Later that night, Kassar meets with traffickers aboard a large ship to collect a mysterious package before heading back toward the mainland. At the same time, Hathaway receives word that the temperature inside the damaged power plant has finally dropped enough to allow entry without immediate fatal risk. Even so, the environment remains dangerously hot, forcing the team to wear protective hazmat suits and move quickly once they go inside. As they enter the control room, they find bodies still lying among the equipment, a grim reminder of the explosion's aftermath. The extreme heat overwhelms one of the agents, causing him to collapse. Nick orders Hathaway to get the man out immediately while he stays behind to finish the task. Nick smashes open an emergency cabinet, grabs an axe, and begins hacking into the servers. Each blow shakes the room, loosening parts of the ceiling and sending debris crashing down. Despite the danger, Nick keeps going until he manages to break open the system and extract a hard drive. Once he's done, Nick and Hathaway work together to carry the injured agent safely out of the building. Once the emergency crew cools the hard drive, it's connected to a computer for analysis. Although they manage to recover pieces of the malware, the data is too damaged to provide anything meaningful. Nick then recalls how the government was able to restore his deleted files after his arrest. Carol admits that they used a powerful recovery program known as Black Widow. She requests permission from her superior to use the software again, but he immediately denies it, refusing to share classified tools with China or with a convicted hacker like Nick. Because the software can be accessed remotely, Nick offers to break into the government system and use it without authorization. With no other options left, Carol reluctantly agrees. To protect themselves, everyone except Liane leaves the room so they can claim ignorance if the plan backfires. Nick sends a convincing fake email to Carol's boss, prompting him to reset his password. As soon as the password is changed, Nick's malware captures it, giving him access to the Black Widow program. The team heads out to grab dinner, completely unaware that someone has been tailing them and has secretly placed a device beneath their vehicle. When they return, Nick announces that he has successfully traced the hacker's IP address. The server is located in Indonesia, but Nick quickly realizes it's protected by a specialized company that exclusively serves hackers, making it virtually impossible to hack remotely. With no other options left, they conclude that the only way to access the server is to physically go to Indonesia and seize the hard drives in person. Because of her request to use Black Widow, Carol can no longer expect any special treatment, so Hathaway assures her that he will negotiate with his superiors to secure visas and identification badges that will allow them legal access in Indonesia. Later, Lian successfully hacks into the hosting company's financial records and discovers payments for a satellite rental software. The hacker has purchased high-resolution satellite imagery focused on the coast of Malaysia, indicating the next target or plan. Meanwhile, the Chinese government informs Hathaway that the FBI has reported Nick for hacking into classified software and now demands that he be returned to custody. Hathaway argues that Nick's involvement was crucial in tracking down the hacker, but his superiors refuse to listen. As a result, the rest of the team is cleared to travel to Indonesia, while Nick is ordered to be sent back to the United States. The next morning, Hathaway sends Lian a warning via text, prompting her and Nick to sneak away immediately. Meanwhile, Carol receives a call from her boss, who reprimands her for the situation. She explains that she had no choice in the matter, but her boss insists that Nick must be returned to custody. By the time she arrives at Nick's room, he is already gone. They quickly realize that Nick had altered the ankle monitor app, and they rush to fix it in an attempt to trace his current location. Hathaway meets Nick in secret and explains that the Americans now believe China has obtained the Black Widow software due to Nick's actions. He urges Nick to go on the run and assures him that they will reunite later in Indonesia. Lian insists on accompanying Nick, but he refuses, believing the journey is far too risky. This leads to a heated argument until she ultimately leaves, allowing Nick to continue on his own. As Carol and another agent attempt to track Nick via the ankle monitor, Lian moves ahead and waits at the airport for Nick and Hathaway. Nick takes the time to have a serious talk with her, helping her realize that she cannot be romantically involved with someone on the run. Suddenly, a car explodes behind them, killing Hathaway instantly. Kasser and his men are nearby and begin shooting. Nick quickly shields the grieving Lian, keeping her safe and hidden from the attackers. At that critical moment, Carol and her fellow agent arrive, joining the firefight. They succeed in taking down a few of Kasser's men, but are quickly overwhelmed and shot. Using the chaos as cover, Nick and Lian escape, ducking into a subway station and hopping onto a departing train just before their pursuers can reach them. Lian declares that she wants revenge, and Nick agrees to accompany her on the mission. Shortly afterward, Lian bribes a few criminals to secure fake passports for them and to disable Nick's ankle monitor. Changing their plan, they decide to travel to Malaysia instead of Indonesia to investigate the hacker's next move. The police continue tracking the monitor app, unaware that it has already been discarded into the ocean. By paying off the owner of a private plane, Lian and Nick manage to fly safely to Malaysia, avoiding detection. Using the satellite coordinates, they arrive at the location, but initially it looks deserted. Then they spot hidden stairs among the rocks, which they climb, discovering a hatch at the top. Inside, they find the machinery that operates the local dam. Noticing that the water pump model matches the one used at the power plant, Nick deduces that the hacker plans to sabotage the dam, destroy nearby tin mines, and profit from tin futures. He realizes that the earlier attacks were only practice runs to perfect the hacker's code. Later, the pair arrives in Indonesia and gathers various tools, setting up their computers in their room to prepare for their next move. Nick then climbs onto a car in a parking structure and pushes a van off the roof, causing it to crash into the hosting company's building and create significant destruction. As the chaos draws the attention of police and emergency responders, Nick takes the opportunity to sneak inside the building and connect his laptop to the server, downloading critical files and code. Back in their room, he and Lian analyze the data, confirming that the hacker possesses a third version of the rat and is indeed planning to target the dam. They also uncover the hacker's actual account details. The following day, Lian visits the bank and informs the receptionist that she has a presentation with the manager. When she accidentally spills coffee on her notes, the receptionist kindly offers to print a new copy and plugs in her USB drive. Using this access, Nick remotely hacks into the bank's system and transfers all of the hacker's funds into his own account. Afterward, he sends a warning message to the hacker, including a phone number for contact. Eventually, they receive a phone call from Kasser, but Nick insists on speaking directly to the hacker and abruptly ends the call. Shortly after, the phone rings again. It's Sadak, the actual hacker and Kasser's superior. Nick pretends to be interested in teaming up with Sadak, and the two agree to a meeting. Anticipating potential danger, Leon gathers supplies from a store, while Nick fashions improvised body armor and conceals several self-defense tools for protection. Nick instructs Sadak to bring only Kasser to the meeting, but Sadak arrives with all of his men. Watching from a distance, Leon notices the extra reinforcements and warns Nick, who contacts Sadak to request a change in location. Later in the evening, they head to a local festival, only for Sadak to appear again with his men. Blending into the crowd, Nick and Leon stay hidden, carefully pushing festival dancers aside when necessary to maintain their cover. Nick attempts to sneak up behind Kasser, but the man turns and points his gun at him. As Kasser approaches, Nick acts swiftly, seizing his head and stabbing him with a screwdriver. He then takes Kasser's gun and moves towards Sadak, but Sadak's men open fire before he can shoot. The crowd erupts in chaos, and Nick fights back, taking a few bullets while managing to eliminate both attackers. Sadak lunges at Nick with a knife, but the blade becomes lodged in his hood. A struggle breaks out, and Nick successfully fractures Sadak's arm, creating an opening. He seizes the moment to stab Sadak repeatedly, ultimately killing him. After the fight, Nick rushes to Leon, who escorts him back to their car. Fortunately, the makeshift armor he crafted prevents his injuries from being fatal, and Leon quickly treats his wounds. The following day, Nick and Leon depart from Indonesia, beginning a fresh chapter in their lives with the wealth they obtained from Sadak. And that is how it ended. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this, and you can find this movie in the description below or our comment section. Thanks for watching.